The artist today has kind of a life that took a weird turn that I don't think he really expected, and his art was greatly affected by one decision that he made. Our artist today is Jewish and was over in Europe during the 1930s. And so, as most of you guys should know, that World War II, they were trying to gather all the Jewish people. And so he actually fled Europe and went to the United States in 1938. And he became a working artist there. And he was before. What you guys probably didn't know is that the Nazis actually deemed a certain type of art or abstract art as degenerate art. That means to regress. And so any art that was labeled degenerate art was basically confiscated, burned, basically gotten rid of. They didn't want it. They thought it was going backwards in art history. And when you're a famous Jewish artist, they were on the hunt for him. They were trying to find him. Even though he moved to the United States, there were spies trying to find these Jews, these famous Jews, that fled. And so he was always in fear of that. So finally he actually changed his name in the United States. And I think this really greatly affected his art pieces because you got to think about this. And this is a personal reason for me as well, where you have a name. And his name was very Jewish sounding. A lot of last names, if you hear them, you would think, oh, that is definitely Jewish. And that's how they gathered Jewish people. And so what would happen is, if they found him, they would know that he was Jewish and the spies could easily find him. But think about this. If your name is based on your religion, your faith, what you truly believe, and you have a choice of changing your name and denying really who you are, but saving your life, would you do that? And so this is a personal issue for me because my first name is Christian. I really can't go to a few countries in this world because of my name. And so to think, would I change my name to save my life, or would I be bold enough to say, no, this is my name, this is my faith, and have a chance of losing my life? And that's what he did. He changed his name. And so a lot of his pieces, when we really look at them, have this very spiritual concept. He does these large fields of bold colors. We can see that it's just big fields, and he's playing with how does this color look next to this color? How do these forms or shapes, proportions, how do they balance? And so his style is actually color field painting, and that's what you're going to write down for the style, color field painting. Color field painting. So color field painting. The time period for him where he actually became famous was 1950s to 1960s. So color field painting, 1950s to 1960s. We're going to see that he basically has the same kind of theory, big shapes, different color theories, what color looks like this next to this color. When we get into advanced ones, you actually have where if you put gray next to a color, it actually looks like the complementary color, which is kind of a weird trick to the brain. These pieces are quite large when you actually see them. He even built a chapel in Houston, and he called this a spiritual chapel. There's no religious symbols on the outside of it, and it's extremely hard to tell what it is from this photo. You can't even really see the painting at all, but when you actually go in and look at these panels of paint, it's this very surreal painting that he has created. And he wants you to force you to think about his art pieces, but also a spiritual realm, and that's what he was trying to force people to do. His name is Mark Rothko. Mark Rothko. His actual name is Marcus Rothkowitz, which is a very Jewish-based name, Marcus Rothkowitz. But Mark Rothko is who we know him as. What I want you to know, the most important information, he changed his name to save his life, which affected his art. He changed his name to save his life, which affected his art. He changed his name to save his life, which affected his art. The really sad thing is, believe it was the early 1970s, he actually walked out of his, I believe, seventh floor building and committed suicide. And that might have stemmed from his whole struggle of people who, his faith, his people died, died, this is my name and I'm going to have faith and I'm going to die no matter what. Yet he didn't. He changed his name to try and save his life. And there was that guilt and struggle with that. So Marcus Rothko changed his name to save his life, and it affected his art. Here is the image that we are going to show you. Now, how we like to remember this. This is kind of a little ploy, or not even ploy, but a little chant that we like to do. In the 1980s, there was actually a London-based band that was based off of Mark Rothko. They called themselves Rothko. And so how we like to imagine is this. We're back in that setting in the 1980s, and this is a stage. You can kind of see the bottom part where the stage is, and then there's this curtain that is, and the band is behind that. And if you've ever been to a concert, you know that sometimes people start chanting the name of that band so that they'll come out. And a lot of times they'll go off the stage after their last song, and they'll go off the stage, and the crowd starts chanting their name again over and over because they want them to come back out and play. And they need to have their lighters up. Their lighters are a key. Now it's cell phones, but they need to have their lighters up to show that they love their songs and they wanted one more song. So, how we remember this? We start off slow and we go, Rothko, 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 Rothko. And then you got your little lighter in the hand. And then you start going, Rothko, 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 Rothko. And you got to start your little lighter and go, ah. So, the way we remember this is Rothko, 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 Rothko. Now, there's an inappropriate second part to this that has to deal with a lighter that we won't discuss here. If you have a question of what that inappropriate thing is, you may ask some of the seniors, but it is now banned. So, if you're very curious, ask some of the Art Senior Seminar students. This is Mark Rothko.